Welcome to Focus Schools podcast, Leading for Impact. My name is Brett Bishop, and I am overjoyed to be working with Focus Schools and in the company of some awesome people here today. Looking forward to sharing all this with you. First, just want to say hello to my good friend and co-host, Kathy Crum. How are you today, Kath?
I'm great, Brett. Thank you.
And we are thrilled to be joined once again by a friend from Springfield, Illinois. Keith Kincaid is with us today. Keith, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Brett. Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
So, Keith, we're really excited to have you with us once again, to join our podcast. And we're looking forward to talking about some of the things that are on the minds of educators at this time of year about the idea of finishing strong and planning for a strong start. And so Kathy's going to lead us off and get us started. So take it away, Kath.
Yeah, so I've been in Keith, I've been in your school so many times. And as soon as you walk into your school, the thing I would describe it as is fun. Yet I know from the years of looking at your data that you still create an environment where there's high achievement every single year, year after year. And so, boy, there has to be some kind of things that you've done to make sure that happens. So, at this time of year, we've kind of maybe finished state testing and it's getting warm out and we're gonna, looking for a little over a month until school's out. How do you keep people's nose to the grindstone? How do you keep things going so that you finish strong? What are some things you can teach us?
There's so many things that we do. I think that schools do well throughout the year that then you don't want to take your eye off that ball at the end. One thing I just did that sort of comes to mind, I just ran this series on the morning announcements. I do video announcements with the kids, and I just ran this series on the morning announcements not too long ago as we started fourth quarter. And I showed some still pictures of coaches talking to different teams and professional coaches and college coaches and high school coaches and little league coaches. So, I really tried to run the gamut with there. And I said, I did a voiceover and said, so this is the beginning of the fourth quarter of this game. What do you think the coach is saying to the players in this picture? And so it was really a stop and talk kind of moment for kids. We're a K-5 building, and so then each class stopped and talked about, what do you think the coach is saying to his or her players here at the beginning of the fourth quarter? And the students really talked about keep working hard, do your best, don't give up. We've got one quarter to win it, all of those kinds of things. And that's really a mindset in a school too. Your best teams don't ever say, oh, we worked hard for the first three quarters, we're going to kind of take it easy this quarter. They say we worked hard for the first three quarters and now we're really going to hammer at this quarter. And so to try to get that mindset for kids and all of us. I read one time that the best way to make sure that kids don't think the school year is over in March is to make sure that the staff doesn't think the school year is over in March. And that's really true. We've got a lot of learning that we can still accomplish.
I love that because you're putting also the visuals really stick in the kids' minds, I think, as something that they can hang on to. So does data play any kind of role in this? Do you use data
Oh,
to your
yes.
advantage?
Oh, yes, for sure. So, we're always looking at all kinds of data, reading levels and math levels, and we're getting ready to take the MAP test again here in just another couple of weeks. And so we have a data board in the hallway right outside the bathroom. Apparently that's where you get the most traffic in a school, is right outside the bathrooms, right? So we really keep that up there all year long, and we keep our most recent data up there, and we present it in ways that's easily understandable for even our littlest learners. And so we're always setting goals. What's next with our data? Okay, what's next with our data? So the kids can tell you that, the staff can tell you that, and that's not something we let go until till the very end. And even then, we're talking about, okay, well, what about next year's data then? So it's just that continuous process.
Yeah, their own goal setting and then the school goal setting and
Absolutely.
yeah, not letting go until we achieve those goals. How about do you guys, triangulate data in some kind of way? Like you're talking about academic data. Is there any other thing that they look at as far as finishing strong?
Sure, sure. Well, we look at, of course, social emotional data as well. We use the whole panorama to kind of see where students are and the kind of supports we need. But as far as like academic data, we'll use some of those higher stakes tests. But of course, we'll use interim measures too in the classroom, right? The teacher designed assessments to see, are we getting are we heading toward that goal? Are we making the progress that we hope the students that we want the students to make, I should say. We don't just wait until those high stakes assessments come through once or twice a year, but that constant dipsticking, or how are we doing now? How are we doing now? Do we need to adjust something here? So yeah, there's always sort of that checking in on what we're expecting.
You also just exude when people see you in the building, and your teachers as well, just this high energy all the time, out and about, no matter what day we're in, no matter what time of day it is. I can tell, there's little signals that I look for, like for instance, principals who can answer an email during the literacy block. You go, I wonder why this is okay to be answering the email during literacy block. You don't
Right.
answer emails until the kids are gone. I know this for a fact because I've sent you a lot of emails. So, but you are just the embodiment of, okay, we got to go. We got to go. When we're in school, this is what we're doing. So you probably wouldn't say that out loud about yourself, but I think for me, that's something that the kids catch, and they know that they're supposed to keep on keeping on.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think it's about sending that message that this is important work. What we're doing here is important, so we really try to, it's that keep your eye right on that focus, boy. What we're doing is important. We can't let the other millions of distractions that are out there, and boy, are they out there, but, take us from the important work we're doing.
And then, the strong finish also leads to summer work that helps you to kind of start strong. So Brett, what do you want to know about the strong starts that Keith has had over the years?
Well, so one of the things that occurs to me, Keith, is that at some point in the most, I've had the gift of being in lots of really effective schools in this job, and it seems to me that there's a point where every year they start to take their eyes and place them on next year, right?
Yeah.
So, things like, for example, like, the idea of classroom lists, or anything like that, calendar planning, PD planning. So when do you suggest, if you were talking to leaders, like when do you suggest, and what do you suggest they start thinking about in the year currently for thinking about next year?
I usually start having one foot in this year's camp and one foot in next year's camp in about March, because there are lots of things to think about, and time is such a precious commodity in schools. Because you mentioned class lists, for instance. That's not something I do in isolation, because who knows the kids better than the teachers? Nobody. And so they're a part of that process. We do that together. And so, we really start to have those conversations about, okay, well, next year, let's think about, and, so we'll put on, for instance, our ILT agenda. We have an ILT agenda, an ILT meeting tomorrow, actually, 7:45, and that's what we're going to spend our time. We're talking about how are we going to make this bridge. We're bringing on a new reading writing curriculum next year. What kinds of things do we need to do to make this a smooth transition between this May and next August? There's PD that needs to happen for the new curriculum, and of course some shifts in staff across the building and some of those kinds of things. So we don't want to just say, okay, bye in May, and then in August think, okay, now what? It's too late, so we're really trying to help build a smooth transition now.
Are there any things that you have found helpful in sort of keeping folks, in the know over the summer, like staff members? Obviously, people go on vacation, they go off, but is there anything that you think is helpful in terms of keeping them connected to what's going on? So if they choose to, they can come back fully informed and sort of ready. Is there anything you would suggest?
Any of that summer planning we really try to get hammered down very specifically before we all walk away at the end of May. So people know this is when the ILT is meeting and this is what we're doing. This is when the PBIS team is meeting and this is what we're doing. This is what PD is going to look like for next year. And if you want to get a jump start on that, here are some things you can do. So it can really be a little more self-directed, I guess,
Mm.
in the summer. So people know what to expect throughout the summer in May. Because let's face it, that people don't really want to get lots of emails or phone calls or anything from their principal when they're at the pool in the summer. They don't want that. We really try to do those kinds of things while people are still on the clock.
And did you, I just want to go back to something you said. Did you say that one of the things you do is you plan for ILT meetings to occur in between the last day of school of one year to the first day of school of another year? Is there ILT meetings that go on in the summer?
We do one, we call it a retreat, which maybe just is a fancy name for long meeting.
Sounds
Where
good though. I like it.
I think
right,
retreat sounds better.
right. So people know that day and they know the agenda before they walk away, because of course we do that together, collaboratively put that agenda together. And we invite everybody to come, because we don't ever want, well, only the ILT is a part of this. Here is the ILT meeting. Everyone is welcome. Here are the agenda topics that we'll be covering. And that's really those meetings when you don't have to keep one eye on your watch because you have to pick up your class in 6 minutes, really set the stage for a strong school year. And we do that both with ILT, which of course is the instructional team for the building, and the PBIS team, which is the climate, culture, behavior team. So we do one of those for each team in the summer to really get our feet on the ground. Because although that is the important work, if you wait, it's been my experience that if you wait until right at the beginning of the school year, the important work is forced to take a back seat to the urgent work, which is, getting name tags on desks and those kinds of things. And you don't ever want what's important to take a back seat to what's urgent.
Building on what you just finished saying there, I wonder that to me applies in so many different things in a school year, because I think there's one thing I can be certain the first time I walk in any school is that everyone in that school has the urgent flying at them all the time. I haven't met them yet. I don't know what the school's name is. I don't know anything about, but I know that.
Yes, yeah.
Because that's just a constant in schools. It's the way people have to learn to operate. But when there is this issue of keeping the main thing, keeping the important above the urgent, that's going on. One of the things I wonder about is, does your team have any agreements around the notion of, let's say, I don't know a better term to call it, non-instructional time? So I would say, like, for example, a popcorn party to celebrate something, or a field trip that could have some instructional value but isn't really direct instruction on reading, anything that would pull us away from tier 1 instruction. Do you have agreements on how much of that time is available to people and when they should or shouldn't do it?
Well, we talk through those things for sure. And it really is about, for us, is what you're getting worth what you're giving up? And I guess that's always the question,
Yeah.
Because there are so many important things to do in school, and there is a place for things like popcorn parties to recognize whatever it is,
Sure.
and those are community building activities. But it always comes down to, is what we're getting worth what we're giving up? Because our time is so precious, our time is so limited with the kids, that we always have to keep that in the forefront. And so yeah, those are the kinds of conversations that as a school we'll have. Yeah, and it's not saying that those other things are bad,
No.
but should we be doing that right now?
What I found interesting in listening to people talk about this is, I've heard some people say, uh, there are other places that they could get, say, a popcorn party or a movie. There's only one place they can get expert instruction. And so if we're going to give that time away, we have to make sure that we're being really intentional about it. And I'm really interested in that, how schools think about that, because as you said, these things are not bad things, right? There's some value to them. They're good things, but it's just a question of, like, how do we decide how much of that we're going to have and how much we aren't going to have? And I'm just always interested in how schools think about that. But yeah, it's interesting. So one last question, and we'll let you go. We know you've probably got 9 people outside your door wanting to talk to you all the time. So, but one of the things I'm interested in is the way in which the ILT thinks about their role in getting the year started with things, for example, like professional development, or the way we're welcoming people back. I heard one principal say, let's just think about the summer as a long weekend and let's pick up where we left off. Is there any suggestions you would have for leaders in how to make sure that they're not losing momentum over the summer and that they're ready to start up?
Well, I agree with that 100%. Just like, say, as an example, in February, you're planning PD for the next month or 6 weeks in March and April. We're doing the same thing in May, right? Then you just take a little hiatus and then come right back to it. So it's never, we never as an ILT want to project the message that that's a new year, we're starting all over.
Oh,
We're not starting all over. We're picking up right where we left off. Do you remember last May when we were doing this? Okay, well, now we're doing this and taking that next step, So yes, that's really how we plan it. And to go back to something I said earlier, and that's why we really work on those agendas for the summer retreat now, because if you don't, what happens is you all get together and say, I don't know, I can't remember. What did we say about that?
yes.
You have to put it together now while your brain is thinking. And so we'll have the PBIS team that I mentioned will have that meeting right after the students leave for the year, within just a couple of days of that, because all of those things are fresh in our brain. And then we put together the agenda in the spring for the fall, but we do wait until late July, early August to have that ILT. And the reason why is data. So we can have that high stakes state data in our hands when we do that. We have tried it in the spring without the data, and it's a little bit like operating with one hand tied behind your back. It just makes more sense to do it with the data in hand.
To me, that's the data part of this is so interesting. And I was in a school just recently, and what they had done, they had a staff meeting where they have 180 days of the school year, and they started with 180, and then they took out days, for example, like a field trip or a half day right before Thanksgiving, and then they went through and then they took out lunch and recess, and then they went through and took out, we have this one day where we have the kids go on a field trip, and then they were left with a series of days that they broke into hours, and they said, well, with our Smarty goal of reaching this height in our reading scores, is this enough time? And as you mentioned, everyone in the room was in concurrence. No, it's not.
Right.
So that to me was a really interesting thing for that principal to do, because it brought it all out. So we're not being urgent just because we want to.
Right.
There's a why behind all of this. And I think it was helpful for their staff to see it.
And Keith, as you've talked, I've just in my head been thinking, you this is thing that anybody can do by creating systems where what the planning is, by looking at your data in all kinds of different ways, and just by your own personal behavior in how you approach, finishing strong and starting strong. So it's not that you have to bring in some new program or do something magical. It's just about keeping your head down and keeping going with those systems. So it's just really impressive. And I love what you said about keeping the important more, in front of the urgent. That's
because there are always so many things for both Well, for students and teachers and administrators, things that kind of want to steal your focus from you. And so we all have to rally against that for the kids, right? Nope, this is where we're going to focus. This is what we need to be doing to make school good for kids.
Well said. And as always, everything well said. Keith, we so appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
My pleasure.
And sharing. Thank you so much. And thank you to those of you who have taken time to listen to Keith, help us to learn about how his school is operating with that focus on the finishing years well and then starting strong. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we hope you'll listen to others. You can always find our podcast by going to our website. That's www.focusschools.com. And we would encourage you while you are there to access all our social media pages and like and follow, because there are folks out there doing the same work you are who can benefit from hearing from you as you can from them. So thank you for that. And we wish you all a wonderful end to your school year. And thanks again to Keith and Kathy.